So welcome to Module 4. Let's get together aligned assignments. So we're getting together virtually here this evening. And I'm excited to talk with you about this topic. It's going to be slightly different modeling than I did last time. So what we're going to be doing is you're going to select an appropriate assessment for the skill level for a course learning objective. But what you're going to be doing for our agenda is you are going to be working in breakout groups and for the first two assignments, and then we're going to come back together and we're going to have an open discussion because usually there's a lot of questions about learning objectives and alignments. And then we're going to have our closing. So we only have an hour. I know last time it was kind of tight with time, so I took that into consideration for this time, and we'll go forward from there. So the first thing I'd like you to do is I am going to put you into breakout rooms, and I would like you to identify a time when you were a student in a course or taught a course where the assessments were not aligned appropriately or in a diverse way. So you could be a student, you could be teaching and say, oops, I should have done this or done that. So I'm going to set you up in the breakout groups right now. You're going to have about 10 minutes for that. Okay, so for our next activity, we are going to be thinking about in breakout groups again. You're going to select one person to share the learning objective and possible assessments that you posted to the discussion board. So just one of you, because when we work with faculty, it takes us just to go through the learning objectives. It takes us about an hour and a half usually. And when we do a course alignment like this, it usually takes about another hour and a half consult. So I just want you to think about one and share that out. So if you could select someone, and then as a group discuss, is the learning objective aligned with the assessment? Do you agree with the assessment type? Is there one assessment that would be best measure of the learning objective? Why or why not? And do you have suggestions for a different type of assessment? So is there something that you have done that has worked well in your courses before? Okay, I think we're back together now. So what I'd like to do is a short poll. So let's see if the poll cooperates better than the breakout room second time. So I would like to launch this poll, and it is a quick little poll on alignments and what you felt about the exercises. Okay, so there are poll results. So about 36% of you have never thought about course alignment before, which is fine. That often happens, right? And it might be because sometimes you're given a syllabus to use and teach from that. So you have course leads or course managers that are already doing that for you. And about 43% of you said that this whole process was average. So, which this is not the most fun stuff, right? So I'm right there with you with this and rubrics, but important things to have nonetheless. So let me share all right, so for this section, we are just going to open it up and you are going to ask any questions on learning objectives and alignment. Any burning questions that you have, you can unmute yourself and share with us. And this is great free advice. You have a whole group of colleagues here to help you.
This is Janet. I don't know that it's a question, but when we did my objectives were chosen, but it was very helpful to see it from that perspective. And as I consider and look at the course that I'm teaching, I almost feel a little overwhelmed. I mean, I know we're doing everything. I know it's there, but now it's almost like looking at it from a different perspective and almost like I don't know, just like redoing a paper,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
a bloodied paper and redoing that whole thing. And it's like, oh my, where do I start?
Mhm.
Where do I start? I guess that's how I feel, because I want to be able to put this into practice
Mhm.
and to improve how I'm teaching, and to assure that that the students are learning. But I just that's just a comment that I just wanted to make.
And the learning objectives are really the foundation of the entire course. So that's what's going to lay the foundation. And then you're going to build those assessments on top of it to make sure that the students are mastering the learning objectives. And then you're going to build the course content on top of that. And that's called backwards design. It was a model created by Wiggins and McTee. And most don't do it that way. I have not done it that way. So, you get the content, you think about, they say, oh, you're going to be teaching this course. And you say, oh, yeah, I know what content I'm using. I know what textbook I'm using. And you start thinking about the weekly modules. And then you back end the assessments. And then you go and say, okay, well, this is what I'm really testing. And that's the exact opposite way that you should be doing it. But it's hard to get out of that cycle, too, because we don't learn these things, period, as practitioners in a discipline expert role. And it's also kind of easier to do it from the content because we know the content so well. So I think it's just something that we fall back on.
If I can, this is Dee Dee Matthews in the Division of Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy, and I just wanted to speak to what Bianca was talking about. I was in a CEP institute last year, and I'm taking this one more so because of the online component of it. And I'm very interested in what I can learn in that portion, because the course that I teach is going online, and I've never taught online. I've built the course, but I've never actually taught the content. But last year, in doing this, I had more time than I have this semester, and I took an extremely deep dive down the rabbit hole, Janet, of, of figuring this all out. And it was a pretty intense, probably 6 to 8 week period of really thinking about my course objectives, restructuring my daily objectives to match my course objectives, aligning my course, all of the assessments within my course, and really having an understanding of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I have to say that, like, now that I've run my course one time since then, and now going through my iterations from last year and moving into being about to teach my course online this year, there have been many decisions that I've had to make over the last 4 to 6 months where I can go back to the course objectives that I've already written and the alignment that I already have. And it's just, it makes it such that making decisions about what I want to do with my course are so simple and so easy, because I already have this very, very well laid out plan. And that 2-month period where I was in the trenches figuring it out, it felt very, very hard and very, very difficult, but it has made everything immensely, just so much easier now that I've put in that work. So I think it's well worth it, but yes, it is very overwhelming.
And I will piggyback on that a little bit by saying that I'm on Dee Dee's team that's translating this course into the online. And I wasn't deeply involved in this course residentially. So it was extremely helpful that she already had that stuff kind of figured out, because it meant that when I had to make decisions, or when I was like wondering what was going to be appropriate and what to do, that I also had this really clear-cut structure of knowing the goals of this situation. And now I will mute because my baby is crying.
So the question I have for Didi and maybe for Ingrid too is that then the learning objective and alignment on the assessment, would that be different from online courses versus the classes you had before?
In our program, the idea is that our online courses are, the goals of our online courses are identical to the goals of our residential courses. And so for that reason, no, the main course objectives that I have for my for my residential course are exactly the same as they are for my hybrid course. And the way in which this has helped me a lot is that when I'm going to develop something for the hybrid, I already have a well-written objective for the residential, and I'm trying to bring this content across in a new medium. And sometimes I'm trying to figure out how to devise this content. And I devise something and I look back to the learning objective and I'm like, oh, no, because the objective here says they need to perform this skill. And what I'm having them do here is not perform. This is more of like a recall thing. So this actually does not work. It's not in sync with what I'm doing with the residential. And if truly the courses are the same, then I have to have all of the learning activities match up to the objectives, which are the same. So it's really helped to guide me.
So not to put too much physical therapy emphasis on this is Jennifer. I have just recently returned to USC and have spent a lot of time prior to that really taking a lot of time looking at alignment. So I've spent many years looking at alignment in previous programs and residency programs and mentoring in other places. And I think the thing to be careful about is to recognize that when you set your learning objective and you set your assessment, those things, and as Dee Dee is saying, those things have to be aligned in our two programs that are running concurrently, because at the end of the day, the real objective is to produce a professional who can pass the licensure exam. That's a standardized exam, and they have to meet certain things that our accrediting agency sets out for us. So they have to look exactly the same. And the only difference between the two is the way in which we help those students meet those learning objectives and pass those assessments. And so the intervention is the part in the middle, right? And you have some creativity with that. And that's what makes the online environment, in our case, it's a hybrid environment. We're not solely online. And so to Dee Dee's point, we can do some of that intervention when it has to be performed. We can do that when we're, in person with them, or we can find ways to have them submit a video or something like that. But there's lots of creativity, and that the intervention piece is the part that you can, really have a lot of fun with. But you want to make sure that those interventions match the objective and that they're giving you that stepwise way to get to those assessments at the end, so that you're helping set people up for success.
We just had this conversation with a policy committee here on campus. So lots of different senior professors, tenured faculty, and the idea came up, well, the learning objectives should not be the same because the modalities are so different. And pedagogically, that's not correct. So we had a conversation about it. And the idea is that your diploma does not say, or your transcript does not say online. It just says Master's of Social Work or Doctor of Physical Therapy or whatever that is, right? So there is no distinction. And in my mind, there shouldn't be, because I have 2 degrees that I got online too. And quite honestly, as a student, I would have thought differently if my transcript would have said online versus on ground. So I think making that distinction is not smart on many levels, but for our purposes, not pedagogically sound. And when you have accreditors too, and employers, like to Jennifer's point, you want to make sure that if I'm an employer and hiring a doctor of physical therapy that graduated from USC, I'm expecting that the person who took it online or in the hybrid program has the same training and credentials that the person who took it on ground does.
Which is measured through your assessment. Right,
exactly.
So as the educator, I can say, well, they passed this exam and they passed this exam and they've done this, clinical internship with this standardized, assessment tool, which is exactly what the residential program is doing. And it's not to say one is better or one is not better. It's just to say there are different ways of getting there. Right. But if your learning objectives are the same and your assessment is the same, you're producing the same thing. You just have a different option for people to get there.
Mm-hmm. Other burning questions or experiences about learning objectives and alignment?
I just wanted to echo, it's kind of like, I think someone else said it, I think it was Janet, that once you see this information and you're dissecting it, you can't unsee it. So now all the syllabi I'm looking at, I'm a little more critical and thinking, oh, I need to give some feedback to to people.
Yep. And when I was in one of the groups too, I would caution that you do that politically and bureaucratically, whatever that process is
Yes.
for you, right? So,
Yes.
or you become a course lead or program manager yourself, and then you can create all of this for everyone. But yeah, so we're always cautious about, but we hope that that's what we do. You know, we want these teaching advocates on campus so we can elevate and enhance what we're doing here. And so it takes everyone here knowing these types of things and being able to say, is this really what we're doing in this course?
Yes. The School of Social Work is in the process of looking and revising some of our curriculum, and so this is a great time to, you know, give feedback. And fortunately, my experience has been everybody's pretty open to feedback, and they want feedback and contribution from all of us that are teaching, so it's good. Yeah, but yes, you have to be politically correct, and if you're a lead, you know, then that's all the better.
Yes. Okay, one more comment before we close out.
I don't know if this is a comment or a question that I mentioned the first breakout session that when I was doing the last module discussion, that I had to actually go back to revise my learning objective. As I found that I like the assessment types that I have chosen in the class, but there's nothing to match. So I don't know if that's a common practice, or that just means that the learning objective was not well defined.
So you based your learning objective on the assessments?
Well, so I started with the learning objective and then trying to match the three assessment types. However, that with the current the type that I have, for example, like a discussion, the report, that it seems to the students liking it and then seem to learn well. So I felt like maybe the learning objective was not in the right level that I chose.
And that can happen. I mean, one thing can inform the other. I mean, that's what's happening here. And I look at things holistically too. So, like I said, I've done courses where I've looked at the course content, or I think about it, and then I say, okay, well, what do I really want them to get out of it? So it's hard for me, especially when you're revising a course. It's difficult to just kind of tear apart the learning objectives and start from scratch because you already have things there. So it really is thinking about what I keep asking myself when I do these types of assignments or practices. What am I really having the students show me they can do? What are they going to be able to do at the end of 15 weeks?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we just have a couple minutes left. So I wanted to do two things, a couple things actually, more than two. Quade French, I don't know if any of you are familiar with him in the Office of Wellness. I was speaking to him and Eileen Rosenstein, who runs that section. And one of the things I mentioned was this idea of faculty wellness and how can we help more faculty. And I know that came up as one of our challenges here in online teaching specifically. So Quade said that he would be able to do a mini presentation for us on teaching mindfulness as well as self-care mindfulness in April at our last session together live. So I'm just going to do a quick poll to see if you would be interested in doing that. So bear with me one moment here. And here it is. And wellness. Here we go. So if you would be interested, let me know. Okay. Great. So thank you for that feedback. looks like there is interest, overwhelming interest in this, and some maybe. So that's good. So I'll work with Quaid and then stay tuned for that. We're trying to get some more, like I said, faculty wellness resources together because as we said specifically online, teaching can be, when you're remote, you might feel more isolated. You might not feel as much part of the faculty in your department. So I think it's something important that we should talk about and see what resources we have here. And they're very open to suggestions too. So it's a good kind of pilot project for them to get more feedback as well as to what we can do better here. Okay, great. So I'll let him know about that. Okay, and you have goodies in your mailbox. So I am going to stop that sharing, and I'm holding up what you should have received or will be receiving in your mailbox. Some of you had it sent to campus, others had it sent to your home address if you're remote. There is going to be a pocket guide for evidence-based instruction, which is a little book. It's all evidence-based, so it has references in it. Things like preparing for class, getting students to prepare, so you can brainstorming, active learning strategies. So this is something you can keep next to your desk and think about tips for student buy-in, all of the things that we normally question. So it's kind of a springboard to think about some of these things. The other thing that's in your package is the Bloom's Cognitive Taxonomy slider that you will receive. So that has outcome verbs, assessment questions, so just what we're talking about today, and also instructional strategies. So I hope you use these and enjoy these. Kind of fun when you go through them, so we always have a good time with them. Okay, our next topic that we're going to be working on is netiquette policies. And that is something that we often don't think about. And we're going to talk about netiquette in terms of actual synchronous sessions. And we've had some incidences on campus as well as colleagues from other schools where students have shown up without shirts on during synchronous sessions. They don't wear professional attire. We had one girl show up in pasties because she was going out clubbing that evening, which was an interesting thing. So we've had all kinds of incidences here, right? Pajamas. So attire, thinking about proper etiquette. Do you eat your meal when you're sitting here during a synchronous session, right? So we take these things for granted because we just know it's professional behavior, but our students might not. So we're going to talk about netiquette policies. And then our next synchronous session is going to be February 24th, 2020. So all the way a couple months, but I'm sure it'll go very quickly. So, okay. So are there any final words, comments from this evening?
Ingrid, I had a question. Are we going to be having asynchronous work for October, I know, for November and December and January also?
So let me just look at the schedule right here. We are going up to November 18th. So it'll cut off before Thanksgiving, and then we will pick up again in January. So around mid-January, your first work submission, work product will be due again. So yeah, so we shut down for the winter break. That's our self-care we're talking about. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to go through. Blackboard was down today, so another technology issue, but I'm going to go through and make comments on your course alignment. And then, as always, just always feel free to reach out to us at any time. Okay, have a good evening, everyone. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.